Well, welcome back to the IT3 Mastermind podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Shaq, where we bring you fresh perspectives from Black men living life about personal growth. This week, we'll be talking about entrepreneurship from the perspective of outsiders trying to get in. Let's get into this. The first question, ladies and gentlemen, fellas, as Black men in America, what is the importance of entrepreneurship to you?
All right, so I think for myself, I never really thought of entrepreneurship as an option for me, or it's something that I was interested in. I have my pop. He's had his business, his construction business, for over 20 years, and but never really showed much of an interest. Was just satisfied to just work a regular 9 to 5, and but I think as time has gone on, and seeing just what's been going on in our country as of late, we just see the importance of pouring into each other and pouring into Black businesses, but also seeing that, as much as I want to support Black businesses, seeing that I have something to offer as well, and just wanting to have another stream of income for myself other than just the job I currently have. So I think that's what, for me in particular, and I think for Black men in America, is that opportunity with entrepreneurship, is to create something separate from what the typical job you may have, and to have some level of ownership in your own life. So,
yeah, I would agree with that, John. For me, the importance of entrepreneurship as a Black man, I'll take a couple different approaches. For me, it's always been I want to own my own business. I want to make my own rules, make my own times, go to work when I want to, or close up shop when I want to. Kind of have some sense of freedom. But as I got older, the importance of it for me was to pour back into the community. Showing younger men that you can do what you want to do. If you have an idea, you can go out and accomplish it. If that's opening up your own barbershop, your own restaurant, you can go out and do it. And then taking it to a father's perspective, giving my kids something that they can kind of pull from if they need to. If they want to be in the family business, then they can be in the family business. But if not, then they know that there's something there for them. If it's, say they get laid off for some reason, there's a family business for them to go to. So it's something to pass on to them, but also some type of stability for them if certain circumstances, kind of like we're in now. Say that my business was able to kind of stay afloat during the whole COVID-19 thing, and they needed somewhere to work. I could provide them that job. So kind of thinking about it long term for me is what the importance of it, entrepreneurship.
For me, I just think with the next generation, I just want to put them in a better position than I started out with. And whether that's actually owning something or buying the block and letting other people pursue their passions, but owning real estate and things like that. But whether it's kids, my kids, or whether it's kids I'm teaching, or whether it's just youth I've worked with, or even people my age that have a passion or super dope artist, or they do hair or whatever, they do nails, but giving them a place where they can pursue those passions and be successful. And just like we don't have that much in our communities. So we see other groups of people doing that well. And just like us in general, Ramon's not here, but there are 7 of us, and maybe we can't do it all individually, but coming together and buying a block or buying a building and then letting other people pursue their passions, then I think that's huge. And we need to start thinking about that now and not wait until we're 50 and 60, but do it while we're still young. And so that's what it means to me.
I echo Ike 110%. It's about building the ability to build generational wealth and what that can do for generations. You think about all the stumbling blocks that we have as Black men in America, and you compile that with the fact that on average, we make way less than our white counterparts. Financial stability is not the only stability, but it lays a groundwork for a lot of the other ones. I'll finish it with this. It's one of my favorite quotes about money. It comes from Tyler Perry while he was playing Medea. And he, while playing She, said this: I've heard that money don't buy happiness. I'd sure in the hell like to find out. And that is a legitimate fact for me. So building that generational wealth.
I know being broke don't buy happiness either.
Hey, you know what I feel like my perspective on being an entrepreneur has grown and changed over the course of my life. When I was a kid, I think I thought about having my own business because I wanted to make stuff. Like I was into inventing things and building things and stuff like that. So I figured if I could make a job to where I get to make stuff and then sell it to people, like that'd be a great job. And then I had dreams of building a museum at one point in time. And I think as I got older, it turned into being a graphic design firm or something like that. And the reason has changed as I've gotten older. When I was younger, it was because it was like I would have control over whatever it was that I wanted to do, and I could, work for myself. And I think now it's a little bit more, the idea of being an entrepreneur is a little bit more of survival, I think, and having a foundation or being a pillar in the community where you're at, that other people can like grow off of, that you can hand down to your kids and stuff like that. So it's about investing really in the place that you're at. And I've dabbled, I think, a little bit in it, but it's an intense venture to go out there and be an entrepreneur. And I think just being an outsider, you feel like in today's time, you feel like opportunity is endless out there, but then but entry is hard. One, being a Black male and just entrepreneurism being what it is right now, and then two, I think just like finding something that's enough niche that people want to pay for you, personally.
Interesting. Okay, I'm hearing some similarity in all of our answers. What it's looking like is that legacy is a big theme. Legacy seems to be the driving theme, and the specific of like the linchpin of the question, I think, especially for the legacy aspect, is the fact that we are all Black men. Why is legacy so important to this identity aspect as Black men? We all kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'm kind of like, what is this legacy and this African American aspect? What is that about?
I think something that's a part of being a man, just in general. Like men of all races, I think there's a part of like, I want to have a legacy. I want to leave something for my son, my daughter, my family, or something like that. I think that part's just natural as far as being a man. But I think as far as the Black man part of it is that we don't have very many of those around us, at least in our own cities. Like they exist, obviously. People who like built something, handed it down. It's like 5th or 6th generation and stuff like that. But there aren't very many of them. So like it's precious, I guess.
I think it's also for myself, seeing my dad's business and loving that he wanted to strike out on his own and do carpentry work, and he did really successful for himself. But because he didn't even have the business acumen to understand how to grow it and like how to get to the point where he's no longer doing the work, he's hiring folks out to do it, and he's just going out and bidding jobs, and because so much of the time he was underselling himself. So he made a lot less than he actually could because he just didn't understand even the concepts of supply and demand with his work, that it didn't go any further. And I just think of the missed opportunities of being able to hire, especially some young Black men who are interested in doing construction, and interested in learning those skills and being able to build that up and then move up from just being a laborer to being somebody who then is laying out, understanding blueprints and being able to do their own layout. And eventually he can send them out and do their own individual jobs. And so it's kind of dying. It will die when he dies. And so I think, especially, that's why legacy, I think, is so important, and being able to understand business is so important, and to be able to build off of it is so important, so that we can leave that for future generations to build off of, so that they can take the skills that we've learned. Because a lot of times our skills die with us if we don't learn how to market it and how to mold it and how to fashion it in a way where it can be replicated by somebody else. They can come in, they can do forward. And so I think that makes it extremely important.
John, what I'm hearing you say is courage plus know-how equals legacy. Is that an accurate statement? Is that an accurate like summation of kind of what you're saying? Like, your dad had the courage but didn't have the know-how.
Yeah, he had the courage and he had the know-how as far as doing the work, but he just didn't know how to translate it into, all right, how do I then market myself well? And how do I bid out jobs so I'm not getting screwed, so that I'm getting so that I'm getting the amount that I've earned? And then how do I model it in such a way that it can be replicated from the people who work under me, so that it can continue on? So, okay,
I think right now we're kind of getting into the areas of like, what is going to propel us forward? I know, Jade, you're a very creative mind. You're a very creative thinker. If you were going to be an entrepreneur, what area would you go into?
It would be something creative, obviously. I think like some of the things that I've tried to do has been like a graphic designer. Not an entrepreneur, but like just kind of my own, not a graphic design firm or anything like that, but I bring in small projects one at a time, sort of thing. And I think initially, like I said, it's just like, oh, I have a special skill. I want to use it to make a little money, and it's basically like work is going to be fun and stuff like that. But I think that as we all got older, and I think that we were being informed, we're like, hey, you have value beyond just making a little side cash here. Like, you should probably invest in yourself, see the value in yourself enough to where you can charge people legitimate prices, and then one day grow into a firm. And I think just because of the direction society is going for entrepreneurs right now, I feel like there's a push to be a little bit more than a small-time entrepreneur. Like, you can, like, we watch Shark Tank and stuff like that. I didn't do this, generations and stuff. So yeah, it would be creative.
Yeah. We also know that, Ike, you do a little bit of entrepreneur stuff on the side already. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing?
Well, it's not really entrepreneurship. It's more of just side hustles. I work with some entrepreneurs. And I think what I'm learning is you've got to learn over time. So like, my uncle's a DJ. He DJs weddings. And so that's not what he was doing his whole life. So he was doing that as a side gig while he was young. He was learning, building up his clientele, but he was a mailman. And so that's what his day job was. And so that's what he did. And on the weekends, he would DJ weddings, he would build up his clientele. And then once it got big enough, he retired early from the Postal Service and then pursued his dream job full time. And so he was getting his retirement check from the post office, but was also doing around 200 weddings a year. And doing these weddings wasn't work to him because this is what he loved to do. So now he has dual incomes, and he's doing what he loves, and it's not work anymore. And I think what we're taught by rappers and people that have been successful already is that you go 100% into your dream, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. And that's not necessarily true. Like, you've got to make sure that you're providing a decent life for yourself, or if you have a family, you got to do that. And it can be a side hustle until it pops. And to go back, I agree with a lot of what John was saying, especially about his dad. But I think what we have to be, especially as the Black community, is we got to be starters. We got to have somebody that starts it. And not only starts it for just themselves individually or even just their family, but starts and puts on for the community. And I think that's a lot what we're starting to talk about and what we're thinking about as a group, is not only being entrepreneurs and owning businesses. Like, I think a few of us have different things. Like, Shaq, you have the gym you're thinking about, but we have those things. But we can also buy property and give other people that we know that are super creative an opportunity to succeed, which still helps us out in the long run. But it puts on the community that we come from, not just us individually or not just our family. And I think that's huge. Like, you need people that are going to start it.
That's excellent. Excellent. So there's a couple things about what you said, Ike, that I kind of want to tease out. Okay. So one is the idea of side hustle versus entrepreneurship. What is that distinction? And another thing is the difference between the legacy for our individual selves, our individual families, versus legacy for the Black community as a whole. Okay. So first, let's talk about that idea of side hustle versus entrepreneurship and making the transition. I was listening to this book by what's the dude's name, Gia? Adam Grant. Okay. Adam Grant wrote this book called Originals. Okay, and he part of the beginning phase of the book, he's explaining Warby Parker, and Warby Parker was a company of everybody knows they make glasses and everything, right? And Adam Grant was going to invest in Warby Parker, but he didn't think that they went in enough. They hedged their bets because they kept their day jobs while they were still building it. And that's kind of like, that made me think of what you said. Made me think about that. So should we side hustle until we have something viable? Is that the game plan?
I think what I'm seeing is similar to what Ike said. I think some people feel the pressure to, like, especially if you hear people in social media or people who've actually, or whatever, is that you need to just start. You need to quit what you're doing and you need to start this right away. But we realize that for a lot of us, that's not possible, and that even if you do start a business, it may be 3-4 years before it's actually at a level where you can sustain yourself on. So I think as much as possible, there's a lot to be learned in it just being a side hustle and just being something where you're just like, it may be something you're just doing on the weekends or when an occasion comes up. If for Ike it's weddings or if it's birthday parties or whatever, or it's kickbacks, and treating it as that, and it's an opportunity to learn and hone your skills better, and to build up that clientele, so that maybe at a point where you're like, all right, this can translate into me doing this more on a full-time, part-time basis. I think that for me feels like that's the difference. And I think what a lot of people get into trouble with initially early on is they try and do too much too fast without being like, yo, this is possible for you to keep your 9-to-5 and do this at the same time. So yeah, and I think in regards to the question about legacy for individual families versus a whole community, is like, yeah, I could look again at the example of my dad and see, like, he built legacy for his family for like hard work, and that we can build off of, and that we can be like, we can go out and start a business and be successful for ourselves. But it's being able to see how what I do can connect to the next business. So like, let's say I have a construction business. Is there a Black person I know who I can buy tools from that maybe manufactures, that they have their own drywall company where I can buy from them rather than going to Home Depot or Lowe's to go buy supplies? And then from them, where are they getting their supplies from? Who's connecting them to their work? And then being able to use that to be like, all right, I'm gonna pick up jobs for Black businesses and work for them, so that I'm pouring into their business now, so that they have a brick and mortar more that provides more of that feel that people want to be in that environment in. So I think it's a bit of that. Like, how do you? It's not just about me being successful. It's like, all right, then how can I take my success and connect it to the next person, so that I can pour into them, and that can lead to their future success, is what that means to me. And that's ultimately how you build more legacy within the community, and how it's like a 360 effect where you don't have to go outside of the community for anything. You already have connections to somebody, and it just goes in a circular motion and it comes back around to you. So
that's good. That's good. Anybody else got anything to add on that point?
I want to go to the side hustle and keeping your 9 to 5. I think it's very important. One of the things that I learned is that you can't just jump full-fledged into what you want your entrepreneurial business to be, whatever that is. You have to have, I think, if it's going to be a side hustle, let it be a side hustle. As John and a couple of, and I think I said it as well, you have to learn that business first. And if you have a family, you got to be able to make sure that side hustle that's eventually going to become your full-time business, make sure that it can I don't know what that was, but make sure that it can provide for your family, because you don't want to say, hey, I'm doing this business and I'm just going to quit my 9 to 5, and then you got no food on the table and you got no place to live. So I think it's very important as a business to have as an entrepreneur, you have to know that this is not just you jumping into the pool and then you start swimming. You got to take those baby steps. You got to start with the arms, learn the arm motion. Then you got to learn how to kick your feet in that rhythm to kind of keep you afloat, keep you moving. So I think it's very important as an entrepreneur, again, to understand that you're not going to, unless you have the funds to do it and you can pay for everything, and you got old money, what have you, but you got the money to do it. But if you're a person, don't have the resources available to you already, you have to learn how to go get those resources, and it's going to take time. You're not just going to have it all together at one time. And then even if you do have it together, you're still learning. So you're always learning that business, but it is very important to start small and build big.
I think that's the key though. Like, can I say one thing?
Yep, for sure.
Is that there's no absolutes. And so we're trying to figure this thing out right now. We're not there yet, but we're dreaming it up, and we'll get there. But there's no absolutes. Like, it's not that everybody needs to have a side hustle before they go into entrepreneurship and then build it up and then figure it out that way. But it's also not that everybody needs to drop everything except their dream job or what they're trying to go into and what they're trying to create and go into that 100%. Like, sometimes it works that way, sometimes it doesn't. And for everybody's goes our situation, they need to figure out what works best for them. Maybe it's them by themselves. They have a little saved money. They don't have anybody that they're taking care of. So it makes sense to, like, hey, I got enough money for a year or two to go straight after this. And it makes sense to put all your effort into it. But maybe you don't have that. Maybe you've got a kid and a wife. And so you're like, hey, I still need to provide for them. So I'm going to do this 9 to 5, and I make good money at it. So I'm able to provide for them. And then 2 to 3 hours a day after work, I'm going to work really hard on this side hustle. So hopefully in a few years it'll blow and I can do that full time. But there's no absolute in it. You got to figure it out for yourself.
No matter how you do it, it's going to be risky.
I think
no matter how much money you have, it's a risk one way or
the other. I think something that you said, Ike, that I've always told myself, and I think it's very important to point out, that if you have a side hustle, or even if it's just you focusing on that business for 2 hours. Maybe it's an hour a day, maybe it's 30 minutes, 2 hours, what have you. You have to put your 100% effort into that. Because if you're not putting your 100% effort into that, then what's the point of doing it, really? So I think that's something that's very, very key. If it's going to be a side hustle, put your 100% into that side hustle. If it's going to be a business that you're looking to blow up soon, put your 100% into it. Because if not, then you're selling yourself short already.
Facts. I think there's a couple examples of this that make it real easy to see. The first example is rapper Toby, who when he got found and jumped into it, he had a quote that said, "I'm going to do this for the next 10 years consistently. And then after 10 years, if nothing come of it, I can say I gave it my best shot." But he also had talent, because we know of another story that just came out recently where there was a NASCAR driver named Ray such and such. I don't remember his last name, and neither does NASCAR, where he was a race car driver, and he'd been going after it for a while, and he literally had never won. And so there's a piece of this conversation where it says, like, yes, entrepreneurship, yes, go after what you want, and actually you better be good at it. Because after 0 wins, when you want to make a statement or when you want to push yourself up, nobody cares. And so there's a level of that you got to talk about as well, where, like, hopefully you got good friends. He has terrible friends. You know that, because he no one told him, like, you should chill. But there's a reality. There's a reality that if it did take the 10 years, whether you jumped straight into it or whether you did it as a side hustle, there's a level of production, and you got to have a self-awareness. Or if you're not self-aware, you need to have self-aware people around you that are regularly giving you the business, the truth about what's going on.
All right, y'all.
So
there's some nuggets,
yeah.
Some mad nuggets up in this conversation. I kind of wanted to wrap it up, but John, you said you sound like you had something to say.
It just really is also consistency. Like, if you just, like, you can grind at it, but then if you grind at it and then after like a year, you're just like, it doesn't look like it's working. It's like you quit too early. Like, it's just about, like, can you do it 110% and can you do it consistently? Like, from job to job, it's still the same thing. It doesn't veer too far off from one side or the other, you know, and I think that matters too. Your consistency is what's also going to draw people into you and keep your name on people's mouths, as far as, like, oh yeah, I know somebody, word of mouth and stuff like that. So I think that's a huge piece of it too. And I think a lot of people just they probably quit way too soon, and thinking that the results are going to come right away, where it takes a while. Like, no.
Some of the part of being an entrepreneur that I think is the unpredictable piece is that you might want to do something that nobody wants. You might, the first couple businesses might fail. You might be in the wrong market and stuff like that. And I think there's just so many unpredictable parts of it that every entrepreneur that I've ever, like, listened to their life story as to how their business came to be. It's like there's like 3 other businesses that started, including like Steve Jobs. Like, there's 3 other versions of that thing that he was trying to put together that nothing ever came of them. And you have to know that that's going to happen. And I think that's why some people have the perspective of, like, you can't play it safe, and then some people have the perspective that you should play safe, because some people want to, like, hone it and craft it to where it's perfect, and then they go out because they feel like that's the best option. That works for some people it doesn't. And then other people they just say jump in, because you never know what you'll learn. I lean more that way, because I know for myself, like, the stuff that I do, like, I get, like, paid for side jobs for doing graphic design stuff. When I actually just did it, it worked out a little bit better than when I researched for like 2 years in a row. Like, well, maybe what's the best route to go about it? Because I learned so much more, because I got my toe stubbed, a couple times and stuff. I realized that, I should probably charge a little bit more than $50 every time I do this. Otherwise, the clientele is different and you don't really get much for it. All the working stuff you do. So I think it's risky. And it's not guaranteed, no matter how you do.
All right. So this is what I'm getting out of it. Okay. Courage plus consistency plus know-how may equal a legacy if we have the wherewithal to include the community and to lift one another up. All right. So what we have to remember that we are entrepreneurs. We're not entrepreneurs, but we're on the outside, and we want to get into this space. So we have to continue to desire these things, and then to not only do that, but to take action. Yeah.